friends! Welcome to this episode of Yarnyheart Fiber Art. My name is Jess. You can find me on Instagram at yarnyheart, and this is the show where I talk about all the yarny things that I've been up to. It feels like it's been forever since we last talked. I have been having a very tumultuous past couple of weeks, which meant that I didn't really have time to sit down and film anything, but I have been getting a lot of knitting done, so I have a lot of things to share with you. This episode might run a little long. I'm also not running on any show notes right now, so it might get a little rambly, but I'll try and mitigate that as much as I can. But basically kind of what I'll be sharing with you is I have 2 finished objects. I have, I believe, 3 completely new works in progress, so those might take a little bit to chug through. And I have actually a couple of acquisitions to share with you as well. So if that sounds like your GM, sit back, relax, and let's get started. Starting off with my first finished object is the one that I'm wearing currently. This is my Oolong tank by Amy Scher. This is one that I've been working on for a couple of episodes at this point. And I finished it. So I mentioned in the previous episode that I was taking like a long weekend trip down to Southern California with my family, my parents and my brother. And kind of leading up to that trip, I was so very close to finishing this top that I stayed up way too late on the night before we left in order to finish it. I did, however, get the chance to block it beforehand. So I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, when I brought it to my parents' house like the night before our departure, I had finished all of the body part, and all I had left to do was the armhole. I don't know why I couldn't remember that word, but all I had left to do was the armhole ribbing on each side, and so I did actually have the opportunity to block it before I left, especially because it was really hot here that week leading up to us leaving, and so I was able to wet block it, lay it out, and this yarn is a very lovely combination of merino wool and linen, and so it dried pretty quickly, especially with the lace and kind of like the light gauge that it's at. It dried pretty quickly, so I was able to take it with me to my parents' house, finish up that armhole ribbing, and then, you know, it's just the ribbing, so it doesn't really benefit that much from a further block after that. And I was able to wear it on the trip. So if you are following me on Instagram, you've seen pictures of this already that I posted. But I'll post some pictures here as well. These pictures were taken at like Irvine Spectrum. We were just kind of walking around on the night of the first day that we got there. I did I did manage to go to the Hello Kitty Grand Cafe in Irvine, also in the Irvine Spectrum, which is a place that I've always wanted to go for a birthday or something or other, but we were just able to go like pick up some merch. They had a cute little photo wall, and of course I was wearing my brand new knit, and so I couldn't resist taking a couple of pictures in front of that cute little photo wall. So yeah, so I was able to finish this top in time for that trip, and that was very exciting. So yeah, so this is my Oolong tank. A little bit about this also. So I guess like some things that I like about this tank, it is very extremely bra friendly. Like right now I'm just wearing a bra under this. I could wear a camisole if I wanted to, which I did wear this to work also this past week, and I did wear a camisole under it just for the extra coverage. But if I'm not in a, quite honestly, as long as I'm not in a work office kind of context, I feel very comfortable wearing this with just a bra underneath, because even though this lace panel goes down the front, it's pretty covered. Like I think the leaf motifs make sure that it's not too lacy or too open, that it very much exposes your bra. So especially if you're wearing just like a white bra underneath here, it doesn't really look out of place, and it's not like super noticeable. So I feel very comfortable wearing a bra with this. Like this V-neck line comes up high enough to cover as well, as opposed to the boho cami that I had knitted previously. That one cut a little bit low for my taste, but this one I think is a very tasteful height on this neckline. You'll also have to excuse me, my hair is not cooperating today. It's another hot day here in Northern California. But what are you gonna do? It's California, it's summer, it's going to be 90+ degrees no matter what. So just be patient with me on that. And my aircon just kicked on again, so hopefully that will help as well. But yes, more about the tank. The only place where it does kind of show a little bit more than I would like is kind of at the underarm here. You can see a little bit of like the edge of your bra, or like at the underarm part, but that also is not too noticeable, not too much of a problem. The one other thing though is it is quite cropped. Like you can see in the pictures there, but it does come up a few inches above my navel, which is a little more cropped than I would like it to be, but it's not the end of the world. Like, it's a little more cropped than I'd like it to be, but it's still super wearable for me, and I'm going to get a lot of wear out of it because I typically wear high-waisted pants or skirts or shorts, etc., etc. That's just my preferred cut, is a high-waisted bottom. So even though it does show a little bit of skin there, I'm not too opposed to it, especially in the summer. Like, in the summer here in California, it's just not that big of a deal to show a little bit of skin around your midriff. And I've certainly worn garments that are more cropped than this. But that is just another reason why if I were to wear this in like a work setting, I can certainly wear it. But I'm just going to be putting a camisole underneath it just for that extra coverage all around. But it's a really great pattern. It was so much fun to knit. The yarn that I used for this was Maryland by Sayer. And I think this is just their natural base colorway. Yeah, it's just kind of like this very natural beige kind of color. But one thing though is because this is 80% wool and 20% linen, the parts where, and particularly in this color, the parts where the linen, like, the fibers show through a little more, it kind of gives it this nice textured, like almost heathered, kind of oatmeal-y feeling, which I liked. I really like that it has a little bit more interest than just being a plain off-white yarn. Especially since they're very large swaths of stockinette here. But the stockinette was very enjoyable in this yarn. I think the wool does so much to soften up the plant fibers. It just feels good when you're working with it. And then of course the stockinette sections are broken up by this wide lace panel in the middle, and so you are still getting you have something to look forward to every round, which I think very much helped with making the process of knitting this go very quickly. Yeah, beautiful knit. So I guess just some of the details here. It's a 1x1 rib around the armholes, and then you just kind of bind it off like normal. And then there's an applied I-cord edge for the neckline, which I thought was also a very tasteful detail. Yeah, just a pretty top overall. And I'm very proud of the way that it turned out. Yeah, in the past, like whenever I've knitted lace, like I always make so many mistakes doing the lace panel, but this one I didn't really make it. I think there are only 2 places that I made mistakes, and even if I pointed it out now, like I couldn't even tell you where they are. And the mistakes that I made were not major mistakes, to the point that I could like wait until I got to the next row and then try and kind of like drop stitches down and work it back and fix it a little bit. So it wasn't too big of a deal. Yeah, it was just a really fun knit. And a finished object that I really enjoy. I'm going to get... Okay, sorry about that. Okay. I think we're good now. So sorry about that. Today's the day that they're testing the fire alarms at my apartment. And I forgot about that just completely. So we're going to keep on rolling and hope that we're all good now. With this being done, let's go ahead and move on to the next finished object. The next finished object that I have is my snowfall sweater. this has been one that's been going on for a long time. This is a test knit by Hazy Moon on Instagram, and I've just been kind of updating along with my progress. This is a test knit that is due like late August now. I know the deadline did get moved a little bit because some people were running into issues, but I have finished mine. I'm going to hold it up as best I can, but it is currently drying just off camera right now, and it's still quite damp. Even though it is hot and it is summer, it's a pretty chunky knit. So I anticipated it taking a while to fully dry after the wet block, even despite the toasty weather that we're having. So let me just pull it up. Really heavy because it's pretty wet. It smells like sheep too. So this is my finished snowfall sweater. And as you can see, it seems to have grown quite a bit after the wet block, which is what I was exactly hoping for. Yeah, ta-da! So I'm not gonna put it on because it's very wet, but I'm going to try and show you as much of the details as I can. Yes, this was a fun pattern, and this was super duper chunky cables. At the size extra large, this cable across the middle is like a 7x7, which is difficult to execute, but it looks really good after you're done with it. So yes. So this sweater is part of a two-part pattern for either the fall snow vest or the snowfall sweater. And I ended up knitting the sweater version with sleeves. Originally I signed up for the vest, but then Rye really needed a tester or several to decide to do the XL sweater pattern, and I was in the XL testing group for the vest. So I agreed to do the sweater just because, knowing myself, I am a pretty fast knitter comparatively, and I could probably get it done in a reasonable amount of time, which is being proved true. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but I finished before quite a lot of the other people in the tester group, even who weren't knitting the extra large. But it did take a little bit of crunch. So as you can see, this is just an all over cabled sweater. This is worked up flat in pieces and then seamed, which is a pretty standard, like, traditional cabled sweater construction before we started coming up with all these like contiguous knitting styles and stuff. Back in my day, we used to seam it up in pieces. So this is a pretty standard cabled sweater construction. One of the main features here is this nice V-neck in the front. And it does go pretty high. So it is a V-neck, but it goes like up to like here, like my sternum or like bottom of my throat. So it's a very high V-neck. And the sleeves are really nice and bulky. So it's a drop shoulder kind of situation here. And then you leave the armhole is pretty big once you seam up the sides, and that just kind of makes for a really nice roomy sleeve. I could have knit the sleeves longer. The way this is knitted right now, well, I say that now, but I haven't tried it on since after the block, so it might have grown a little bit. But as far as like pre-blocking, I knitted it to kind of like bracelet length. To be honest, just because I didn't really want to knit anymore. But I did make the 2x2 rib section at the bottom. I did make this longer than stated in the pattern, because the pattern, you know, gives a certain amount of rows, but also leaves it up to the knitter of like how long you want your cuff ribbing to be. So I did make my 2x2 ribbing, I think, twice as long to make up for the part of the sleeve that I didn't knit. But I kind of like it as a bracelet length sleeve, because it I don't know, just kind of gives it a little bit more polish. The thing is though, I feel like it did grow with blocking, because like even putting it up to myself now, like here, I can tell that I'm trying to get my arm in the frame. You can kind of tell that it is a little bit longer than it was before I blocked it. So it might end up being a little longer than bracelet length, and if that happens, then, you know, I'd say that's a win-win all around. So yes. So here's my snowfall sweater. So you can see I have a lot of ends to weave in still, and I'm praying for a cool enough day for me to wear this and actually take pictures of it for Rise pattern release. But I might just end up having to crank up the AC in here. Or, this is very, very silly, but one idea that I've been playing with also is like going to the Costco refrigerator section to take pictures. Because all that matters is that you're wearing the sweater, right? Like the locale doesn't really matter. Plus, I think it'd be kind of funny. So that's one very silly idea that I'm toying with, is if I literally just went to the Costco refrigerator section to take pictures in my sweater. But we'll see what happens with that. So, yep. And then I've mentioned the yarn a few times at this point, but the yarn that I used for this is Wool of the Andes Bulky Weight by Knit Picks, and this is in the colorway Blossom Heather. I really enjoyed working with this yarn, and yeah, it's nice. I really, really like the heathering to it because I'm trying to find a spot where it shows. Oh, on the back here it shows. So it has, you know, lighter pinks, darker pinks, kind of all mottled and heathered throughout, but it also has the occasional net of like a brighter strawberry red here and there. That's a very prominent one. I'm sure there are other smaller ones that I just can't for the life of me find right now. But every once in a while you get like a strawberry red like that. And it's so cute. Like it really makes, like when I was knitting this up, I kept calling this my strawberry smoothie sweater because the color very much gives like strawberry smoothie to me. It's super cute. Yes. So like I said, I tested the size XL for this pattern, and I ordered 10 skeins of Wool of the Andes bulky, and I have one full skein, and then I'll just grab a little ball. So I have one full skein and this much of another skein. I'd say this is maybe like a quarter. I haven't weighed it. I don't have a scale. But I have like 1+ balls left of this. So I'm certainly have enough to do something with. Right now I'm kind of leaning towards, I think I might have enough for, gosh, I cannot for the life of me remember the name of this pattern, but I'll put it up on the screen. But it's like a slipper pattern, and it's, so you knit it, I think the construction is similar-ish to doing a sock, except it's kind of like a loafer moccasin kind of thing, but it's for like a household slipper, and it uses bulky weight yarn, and I think I might have enough to make these with it. I think a pair of slippers in this yarn would be really nice because it is a very rustic wool. It's non-superwash, and so I think it'll felt very nicely to be a stronger kind of like loafer household slipper kind of thing, which would be nice because currently like my current household slippers are like this pair of Uniqlo house slippers that are like way too big for me, but the print was cute, so I got them anyway, and I've just been kind of making it work. So it would be nice to have a more comfy slipper that actually fits my foot correctly. So that's an idea that I'm toying with, but probably not something that I will do anytime soon. That's just kind of one idea of what I could do with the leftovers from this. But yeah, so here's my snowfall sweater. Very excited for this to finish drying so that I can actually do a wear test of it now that it's been blocked, because like I said, I think it did grow quite a bit after the wet block. If you remember previously, I was a little bit concerned because it was kind of cinching it a little bit even after steam blocking, but I think the wet block will really help open it up, so I'm excited to see what the final fit is going to be like. Yeah, so those are my two finished objects. Me fix my hair. I need a haircut so badly, y'all. I need a haircut so badly. So next I'm going to talk about some of my whips that I have going on. This is where things get a little crazy. So, oh, I just realized that give me 1 second. So I previously mentioned that road trip to Southern California, and in a previous episode I had also mentioned that I was planning on bringing only one project, a pair of vanilla socks to just kind of work up while we're on the road, while we're on the go, while we're at Knott's Berry Farm and stuff like that. So I did, and I have one finished sock already. So this is my one sock that I have done. I started this before we left. This has not been blocked, by the way. It's just kind of on the sock blocker so I can see it, but I haven't even steam blocked this or anything. Yeah, so I started this before we left just so that I wouldn't have to fiddle with like the cast on or anything like that while we're on the road, because I figured that might make me car sick. Yeah, so I started this before we left, but then pretty much like the rest of this I did on the trip. So like when we started, I think I was just slightly past this hot pink part on the 1x1 rib, and then I did all of this. I finished, I'm trying to think, I finished probably to about here on the road for the way down. I did the entire heel at Knott's Berry Farm and then some. And so I was kind of like on this foot area and just kind of working on this little by little at the hotel room. And then I knitted the entire foot, and I was starting the toe decreases by the time we got back. So pretty much this entire sock was like one long weekend trip. Yeah, but it's nice. So I'm not following any pattern at all for this. This is just completely a freestyle vanilla sock. But some of the things that I did, so I started with a tubular cast on, which I had never done before. So this is my first time doing a tubular cast on. I really liked it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And you'll see in another one of my whips that I used another tubular cast on immediately. Yeah, I liked it. It's really nice. It's very stretchy and it looks super professional and clean. So I started with a tubular cast on, and then this is just a 1x1 twisted rib for a couple inches. I wanted it to have a very nice thick rib portion, as opposed to like, I feel like a lot of socks will have a rib portion that's like half this length, but I really wanted it to be a thick cuff. So I knitted 1x1 twisted rib for a while. And then I cast it on 64 stitches. First of all, this is 64 stitches. And then I just knitted straight stockinette for the leg. And then when I kind of got to a part of the leg that I thought was enough, then I started doing my shadow wrap heel. And I just learned, I just looked up shadow wrap heel before we left for the trip and kind of like learned how to do it. And so yeah, so I did my shadow wrap heel there, and then after the shadow wrap heel, just continued on in stockinette until it looked like it was going to be a good size to my foot, and then I just started doing some very traditional toe decreases down to the toe, and then Kitchener stitch grafted the toe. So very basic top-down sock. I think the only real exciting elements about this are the shadow wrap heel and the tubular cast on, but aside from that, it's a pretty standard sock. Yeah, it does fit pretty well, but I'm very curious to see how well it fits after blocking too, because I do feel like there's some extra fabric like at the top here on my own foot. But once again, like, this is just a fun little project. I'm using a Zauber ball. So this is just a project for me to see how the Zauber ball knits up and just kind of have fun with it. I was telling my parents that while on the trip, I was telling them that it looks kind of like a grape shave ice, because it's self-striping, but it's like a gradient. Like it makes itself, like it blends. It's not a very solid stripe there, but because it blends from like the grape purple to like the white, it just looks very like grape shave ice. So it's cute. Yeah, so this is one sock done. I have started the second sock, but just kind of barely. And this is, I've mentioned earlier that now I can bring a sock project to work to the office with me for my downtime. So this is just gonna be kind of like my travel sock project for the second one. And here's what I have left of the Zauber ball. I have so much of this left. And I think I will very easily bang out another sock because if you like, look at this. This is a pretty tall legged sock, and I feel like I've barely touched this. So I will most definitely be able to bang out another sock easily with this. And I think I'll have quite a bit left over. And I'm starting to accumulate a lot of very large sock scraps. Like, I can't even guesstimate. Like, I'm looking at one of my sock scraps right now. I can't even guesstimate how many yards or how much yarn is in that. But they're sizable scraps. And so I'm very much starting to accumulate some of these and trying to brainstorm like what I want to do with them eventually. I don't think I want to do any of like the scrappy projects that are out there. I think I would rather repurpose them and make different socks with them. So kind of the ideas that I'm toying with right now for a lot of my sock scraps that I have is like doing some color work things. Like particularly Stone Knits has a lot of color work socks where it's some kind of repeating motif on like a plain background. Like there's ones that have roses or ones that have strawberries and stuff like that. And so I'm thinking of maybe doing something like that where I have my color changing yarns as the motif that's repeating, and then I just find a nice base color that will be a good contrast in all of the colors of my color changing yarn, and having that be like the color work palette. So it's just an idea that I'm toying with. Like for this ball particularly, I'm thinking she has so many patterns, I cannot remember the names of them, but she does have one that is like pansies or something like that, or some kind of flower that's not a rose. And I'm thinking that might be a good fit for like a Zauber ball, because all the individual colors in here, like the lavender, the white, the pink, everything, they're all very nice like pansy colors or like posy colors. And so I'm thinking of using it for that, whatever's left over in this. And that's kind of the thing too, is like these scrap socks that I plan on making, I don't have to make them long. Like they can be ankle socks or they can be very short. And yeah, so I don't have to make them very long. And I think that might be a good way to use up some of my scraps that I'm accumulating. So yeah, so these are my plain vanilla socks that I'm working on right now. This is where I start getting into the crazy amount of knitting that I've been doing lately over the past couple of weeks that we haven't spoke. It's almost laughable, really. So kind of what's been going on with me the past couple of weeks, I have been dealing with an ongoing war on ants in my bathroom for over a month now. It started with just a few, and then I've been having pest control out here like every week it feels like I'm playing whack-a-mole with these ants, because wherever I get rid of them in one spot, they show up in another spot, and they've just been attacking my bathroom for weeks now. So it was a whole thing. I got back from my trip to SoCal after having called pest control right before I left. And when I came back, and this was several weeks ago, so this was kind of near the start of this ant battle. And so I came back from my trip and there were ants in my bathtub, just like a whole trail of them. I was like in absolute despair because I was like, I don't know what to do at this point anymore. And so what I ended up doing, because they were in my bathtub and I kind of knew that they wouldn't really be able to do anything in the bathtub to prevent them. So I went out, I bought like a whole bunch of ant traps, and I just set out all of them in the bathtub. And then I went back and stayed with my parents for about a week, just kind of waiting for the baits to do their thing. And so I was understandably very stressed out. It was a very stressful week for me. And what I did, because I was kind of like, I was nearing the end of my snowfall sweater, but it was getting to the point where it was like too big to bring places with me, because all I had left was like one sleeve to do. And so I didn't really want to take it with me to my parents' house, just because it was very big at that point. And so what I did instead is I brought a bunch of, I brought yarn for 2 projects, just that I had not started yet, had not casted on yet, but that I've had the yarn for. And so I brought literally 2 project bags just full of yarn to my parents' house, and I got so much knitting done while I was there. And then after that week at my parents' house, when I came back, by the way, the ants were not gone. They were still there. And so I'm still dealing with this right now. But This past weekend I went camping down in Big Sur with my boyfriend and his family. I only stayed for one night of camping because I'm not really a camping person. So I'm trying to be more adventurous. I'm trying to step out of my comfort zone. And so I stayed for one night of camping. This is something that they do yearly, and so I'm sure I'll be back for more, but I'm just kind of trying to ease myself into the camping outdoor girly lifestyle. So I stayed for one night, but I did bring one of these projects with me to kind of just like knit around the campfire, you know, knit during the day while everybody's just kind of like lounging around and stuff like that. So with all of that combined, I've been knitting like a madwoman. And it's kind of funny. I do definitely feel like I get a lot more knitting done when I'm stressed out, just because knitting's therapeutic. I'm sure anybody who is into knitting or crochet knows this, that doing fiber arts, doing something repetitive with your hands, is very therapeutic. And so for me, it's been a great source of stress relief for me and something to kind of channel a lot of my nervous energy into lately. And so all that to say, I've gotten a lot of knitting done. So as we go into my next whips, that's just kind of the background here of how I have so much progress in such little time. Even though I haven't talked to you for a while, my progress on this stuff has been very explosive, definitely. So here's my first whip, and this is the Seek jumper sweater. Jumper? I think she calls it a jumper, but this is by the Petite Knitter. And it's hard to see right now because it's scrunched up on my needles, but my needles are very small. So let me see if I can get some stitch stoppers real quick. Okay, I've got my stitch stoppers. These pumpkin pies are so cute. These stitch stoppers are from Comic Craft Co., and I picked them up during the Bay Area yarn crawl along with another pair of Comic Craft Co. stitch stoppers that are strawberries. They're so cute. And now I can stretch this out as much as I can still on the small needles, but now I don't have to worry about them falling off. So this is what I have so far. It's kind of a crazy amount of progress for the amount of time that I haven't seen you. Yeah, so this is a circular yoke, top down, colorwork sweater with fingering weight yarn. And I'm sure a lot of you just hearing that are going, oh my god, that is so much knitting. And yes, it is so much knitting. So you can see that I'm trucking along here. I only have 2 more motifs of the colorwork yoke to go before I'm in the solid color stockinette portion of this sweater, which is kind of crazy. So the Seek jumper is the one that has like a squirrel-like motif on it. And this sweater is for my boyfriend. And before you come after me, I don't believe in the sweater curse. I do believe in the sweater curse, but I don't believe that it's going to happen this time. I've been victim of the sweater curse before, but I really think that the sweater curse is all about a lack of communication. I think it is about a lack of mutual respect for the craft. But my boyfriend picked out everything for this project. He picked out the yarn because he came with me on the Bay Area yarn crawl, and he's been very interested in all of the knitting that I do and very interested to learn more about this craft that I love so much, which is really nice. So he came with me on the Bay Area yarn crawl, and we were at Uncommon Threads in Los Altos. And this is Playful Day Yarns Yak Fingering, which is, you know what? I'm just gonna grab a fresh skein that has the ball band on. So this is an untouched skein of this, but this is, yes, Playful Day Yarns, based out of Petaluma, California. Please focus. Please focus. Oh boy. I don't think, oh, there we go. So this is Playful Day Yarns, based out of Petaluma, California, and this is their Yak Fingering base. It's really pretty gray color. So their Yak Fingering base is 70% superwash merino, 20% yak, and 10% nylon. So it is a very sock-like base, but it has that 20% yak in there, which is really, really soft. It has a a very slight halo. Like, it's very hard to see. I don't know if you can even see that, but it has a very, very slight halo. Very slight. I would, like, it's barely there, but it's certainly more than you would get from, say, like a regular merino sock yarn. But this is 100 gram skeins, and this colorway is called Moon Rock. And I believe this was an exclusive colorway for the Bay Area Yarn Crawl. And so I bought 4 skeins of it because I had to be sure that I had enough, because I wasn't sure if I would be able to ever find this particular yarn in this particular colorway ever again, especially since it's a small batch dyer. Even if I could get my hands on it again somehow, the lots would be wildly different. So I overbought on purpose. But when we were there, I was kind of browsing around the things that they had. Playful Day had their trunk show there, and he loved this yarn. My boyfriend was just kind of like browsing along with me, and he said to me, he was like, oh, this yarn is really nice. I could wear a whole sweater of this. And I told him before we embarked on our journey, I told him, you know, if you see anything that you like, let me know, because I want to knit something for you. And so he picked up this, and so I got 4 skeins of this, kind of thinking to myself, okay, 4 skeins of a fingering weight yarn, that's enough for like a solid color sweater, and then we can just decide what sweater later. So I kind of showed him a couple different sweater patterns that were either fingering weight or DK weight, that I could hold this double and make a DK weight sweater. He was like, oh, you know, some, like, these are cute, that one's cute, I guess, and that one's nice. And then I was like, well, you don't have to decide right away, because I have plenty of stuff to knit right now, so I'll hold on to the yarn, and, you know, I won't knit anything unless we find the pattern that you definitely want for this yarn. And then this was a couple weeks later, but I was just showing him some of the petite knitters patterns, like her Instagram page and stuff, and I showed him the 6/6 sweater, and he said, I really want that one. Can you make me that one? And so I was like, oh, okay. So I looked at the specs, and I was like, oh, it does use fingering weight yarn. So I can definitely make it out of this yarn that we already bought for him, but I would need a contrast color. So I sent him back to the yarn store, and he ended up picking out just a Malabrigo sock in their white, just like their plain white colorway, as a contrast to this nice Moon Rock gray. And so I've been knitting that up. And back to what I was saying, I don't believe in the sweater curse. I mean, I believe in the sweater curse, but I also believe that it's not anything mystical. It is literally just human interaction. Like, I think there's psychology behind the sweater curse, just in terms of the fact that, like, when you knit something for somebody but you don't fully communicate about that, then when you gift it to them, it just becomes apparent, like, the existing problems in the relationship, right? Like, if they don't value your craft and your knitting as much as you do, that is a difference of values that just suddenly becomes apparent. Or if you didn't communicate it and that they don't receive it as well as you had hoped that they would, and that highlights the lack of communication there. For me, I'm gonna be fine. I think that I'm going to be absolutely fine, because he picked out the yarn himself, he really liked it, he picked out the pattern, and we've been communicating every step of the way. I've been showing him my progress, and he's super excited to get the sweater when it's done. So I'm very excited. Yes. I've gotten a lot done so far. I've been craving doing some color work, so it's been really, really nice to get some color work on my needles, just because I really missed doing it. Even though it is like early August and the weather outside is horrible, this has been very nice to work on, just because I love my fall winter knits. And so especially with this being fingering weight, and as early on as I am, it's really not too hot to work on it. Like, it's still a very lightweight project to carry around, so I've been enjoying it a lot. And then you can see there, it is kind of scrunched up. I haven't given this like a steam block or anything, but I think after I finish filming this, I might go ahead and give it a steam block that I've been meaning to, just because, like, it bunches up here and there, but it's not that my tension is too tight, it's just that, like, my needles are scrunching it up, and so there isn't enough room for it to really, like, breathe out. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's nice. It's a very fun pattern and super self-explanatory. I think the one thing that I was kind of worried about, but is now resolving itself, is this initial part, because you start off doing a tubular cast on, and then you do 1x1 rib for like 4 inches, and then based on the pictures, like the sample photos, like this neck part stretches out to be kind of more like that. But as I was knitting it, especially in the beginning, it was looking very turtlenecky, and I was like, I'm not confident that this is going to stretch out the way that the pattern, that the photos show that it's going to stretch out. I was like, well, you know what? There's nothing I can do about it now, so all I can do is trust the process. But I did tell my boyfriend that if I get to the end of the yoke and the end of the sweater and it hasn't stretched out like that and it's still too turtlenecky for his taste, then my plan is to just sew down the collar on the inside. Like so, and make it a kind of crew neck style instead, which doesn't look bad. It really doesn't look bad. So that's kind of my plan B if it doesn't work out. But even as I'm working more of the yoke, I do see it starting to stretch out a little bit more. So I'm more optimistic, but it does give me comfort to have a plan B for if it doesn't stretch out, because I think the crew neck doesn't look that bad. Like if I just sewed down the inside and made it a crew neck instead. Yep. But it's a really nice pattern. There's short rows to raise up the back neck. Yeah, it's very thoughtfully constructed, and I found that I just really like doing circular yoke collarwork sweaters. I don't know, I just like it. So that's my progress currently on my Sig jumper for my boyfriend. So this next whip is the other one that I brought to my parents' house. While I was there, I did end up starting both projects that I brought. Initially, I only brought both because I was indecisive about which one that I wanted to start. And also, like, when I was leaving, I low-key had, like, a panic moment of, like, I'm not bringing enough stuff to do. And so, yeah, I don't know. I just had, like, a weird panic of, like, oh, no, like, I need more for some reason. And so I just brought both projects to start. I don't know. Anyway, this is the second pattern that I started, which also has just an absolutely insane amount of progress on it. I started this while watching the, like, our recording of the Olympics opening ceremony, and I've just been kind of chugging along on it ever since. But this is my Anjou tank by Skinny Dippin', and it's in a very awkward stage right now. I was crunching pretty hard before sitting down to film to get this to a less awkward stage than it was, because previously I had this whole front on like a stitch holder, but the stitch holder was too short, so it was kind of like holding it like this. And then I was working on the back straps individually, and so I was working hard to at least get it to the point where I could join the back straps and I could at least have it like holdable like this, all on the needles already. Very fun pattern, although I was very confused by it at first, and I think it was mostly, I think I was just like tired, stressed out, and just could not comprehend what the pattern was telling me, because I ended up having to frog my progress like 3 times. Because like at first I started, you know, like a little bit, because you start at the top of the straps. Actually, you start with a provisional, not a provisional cast on, you start with a Turkish cast on, and you have stitches on hold for the other side, and you start on the front part like this all the way down, and then you cast on another one separately. You knit this all the way down, and then you join them in the front, and then you pick up one side of your held stitches and you knit an identical strap down the back, and then you do that for the other side, an identical strap down the back, and then you join them together like you did with the front. Now I'm at the point where I am knitting this back panel front like flat for a little bit to do additional underarm increases. And then once I'm done with that, I will finally get to join both sides in the round, and I'll be working completely in the round for the rest of the body. It's a very unique construction that I've never seen before. But I mean, I kind of did this to myself a little bit because there is a top down and a bottom up version. And I chose to do this to myself because I chose to do the top down version, which for all intents and purposes is harder. Like straight up the pattern tells you that the top down version is harder. However, this is kind of really stupid. Squinting at the sample photos, because one of them is knit with the top down version, one of them is knit with the bottom up version. Having squinted at the sample photos, I thought to myself, I like the top down version better. I just like the way it looks better. I can't explain why. Like I literally can't even explain why it looks different, but I like that one better. And so I'm knitting it top down. And I was confident. I mean, I was confident. I'm still confident because the thing that I messed up on, was just me not reading it properly. But after that, it's been a breeze. Like it's been a breeze in terms of like I'm no longer confused by the pattern, but it's still pretty tedious. I will say there's a lot of breaking yarn. There's a lot of picking up stitches, or like not picking up. Like there's a lot of breaking yarn. There's a lot of starting in different places. A lot of casting on in the middle of your round and stuff like that. There's just a lot to do. But at the same time, I feel very equipped to do it. Like I feel like I'm, not to toot my own horn or anything again, but I feel like I'm a good enough knitter to accomplish it. And so I embarked on the top-down version with confidence. And I think it's going well so far. Like I'm pretty much done with the hard part, so to speak. Because I just do this for a little bit longer and then I join it in the round and then it's just smooth sailing all the way down. Part of it too is that I'm very bad at guesstimating how long to knit my body before I split for things, and so doing it top down removes all the mystery to that process. I'm just going to knit until it's long enough, then bind it off and call it a day. So that's exciting. Yeah, it's a really beautiful pattern. It is so fun. I cannot tell you how fun this pattern is. Like, it's so engaging. This is the kind of project that I don't want to put down. Like I just want to do the next row, the next row, the next row. It's mosaic knitting, I think is the best way to describe it. And because like mosaic knitting, the color work changes are made with slip stitches and you are only working with one color at a time. And so that to me says that to me makes it mosaic knitting. But it's a textured mosaic because amid all the color work changes in the slip stitches, the textural quality of it is made with these purl bumps. So you're doing what's the word I'm looking for? Seed stitch almost. But yeah, so there's a lot of textural purl bumps in here, a lot of texture in the slip stitches. There's just a lot of texture going on in this knit. And the color work, it's just really fun. It's really fun. It's super unique. I've never seen another pattern like this, and I'm really excited to keep working on it. Yeah. Oh, the yarn that I'm using. So I'm using Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino in the colorways Dark Sea Green and Almond. And I mentioned those yarns as an acquisition, I think, in my previous episode of the podcast. But yeah, so I pretty much just got started on this right away. And I'm chugging through it, honestly. Because the thing is also, like, with the sweater, I very much enjoy working on it, but no one's going to get use out of it for a little while. So I'm not really in any rush to finish it. This, however, I do kind of want to finish before summer's over because it is going to be a tank top, and I do kind of want to get some wear out of it before summer's over. Although I do think it is a little bit thick because it's color work, because I'm holding this fingering weight yarn double to get a DK weight. And so it's a DK weight color work pattern, so it's pretty thick. But the cotton still keeps it kind of nice and light. So I think it's going to be a late summer kind of thing. I think it'll also definitely be very nice to layer with in the fall. So I'm envisioning this when it's finished to be more of like a transitional kind of piece, which is fine because I need those. But I still think it would be nice to get it done in time for summer, because I do think that there are at least some summer days where it would be nice to wear something like this. So that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah. So this is my Anju tank by Skinny Dippin'. Skinny Dippin'. That's all my FOs. That's all my works in progress. So that's like everything that I have going on right now so far. And I think I am using like almost all of my project bags right now, which is kind of nuts to think about. But I do also have some acquisitions to share with you. I'll start off chronologically, because now that I'm thinking about it, I have 3 separate acquisitions that have happened, which is a lot for sure, but it's a lot, but I didn't pay for all of them. So that's that. This first one is one that I did pay for though, so I'll start with that. Okay, so I had told myself that I don't need any more yarn for the rest of the year at least. I have so much yarn. But you might remember that I got this mini fade kit as a free prize during the Bay Area yarn crawl from my local yarn store, Busy Sticks. It was super cool to get this also. I think it was intended to make a cowl, because also included with this kit is a pattern for a cowl to use up the fade. But I'm not really an accessories person. Like, if you know me, I don't really wear a lot of accessories. I don't knit a lot of accessories. And so I didn't really want to do that. I feel like I would get much more use out of a sweater. And so I calced it out, and this is all fingering weight yarn. I calced it out. The total yardage of this fade kit is plenty. It's more than enough to do a colorwork yoke of pretty much any fingering weight colorwork sweater. And so I thought it would be more beneficial for me to use this fade as the yoke of a colorwork sweater instead. And so I decided to use this for the Sasky pattern by the Petite Knitter. When I bought the Seek pattern that I'm currently working on, she was having a BOGO sale for her bunny's 10th birthday. And the bunny is Sasky, which is the jumper that I'm going to make for myself. And so I'm going to use this fade kit as the yoke of that sweater. I'm in no rush to do this, by the way, because this is just me future planning. I have plenty of stuff to sink my teeth into right now, but this might be the next cast on after I finish the Seek jumper, depending on how I'm feeling about color work at that point. Either way, regardless, all I have to say, I had these, and I have been looking for a matching yarn to pair with it. And originally I was thinking about a black, or like a very, very, very dark purple, or a very, very dark blue. The problem is I'm not really a blue person, and so I don't think I would get a lot of wear out of the blue. I might have gotten more out of the purple. But I was kind of thinking that because there's kind of like these cloud motifs in the pattern and stuff like that, so I thought it'd be cute, I don't know. And then Knit Picks was having a sale on lace and fingering yarn, and so I was kind of browsing through their selection, and their price for capretta was insane, girls. Like, how much was it? I think it was $6 something per skein for capretta, which is what is it? What's the comp here? So capretta is a fingering weight yarn. It's 80% superwash fine merino, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon. This yarn feels so good to the touch, and it's actually one of the suggested yarns in the Sasky pattern. So I picked up a sweater quantity of this capretta in the colorway Pinecone Heather. This is a brown. This is not at all a black or a purple or a blue. This is a brown. But I think it's gonna look really good. So I picked up a sweater quantity of this to pair with my fade kit because it was stinking cheap. So to put this into perspective, I got a sweater quantity of this for $35 total. Like, total. I think maybe plus shipping, if anything, but like $35. It was nuts. I couldn't say no. And so I'm like, you know what? I need to buy this anyway. This is an amazing price, so I'm just gonna get it now. Like, why not? So I could not decide on colors. I was looking at, I think it was called Asphalt, but there was kind of like a black heather color that I really liked, but that one wasn't part of the sale. And so I ended up not getting that one. So I was choosing between a few different options, and then I sent pictures to my boyfriend for his opinion. He picked the brown, and so we're gonna do the brown. But I think it's gonna look good. What do you guys think? I think it's gonna look good. And I think it was the correct choice because I feel like, well, one, I've knitted a lot of purple, so, you know, adding another purple would be yet another purple to my repertoire. I don't really wear blue. Black might have been a little bit too stark of a contrast. So we're gonna go with the brown. And I think in the end it is a very good choice. I think what it is, honestly, is my boyfriend knows me better than I know myself because I love wearing brown. I wear a lot of brown, I wear a lot of neutrals, and that's just kind of like my go-to color. And so I think he was correct. I think I will wear the brown more than I would have worn any of the other color options. So that's what we're gonna do. My second acquisition is related to the one that I just showed you. So if you remember a little while back, I was making all these crochet plushies for a charity donation at my workplace. And it was, so basically they were donations for a silent auction. And so once I donated them, they were available for like everyone in the whole company to see and then place bids on. And my plushies did pretty well, but then a little while ago, I received a message from someone who works at my company but is not in my department, and she was inquiring about the yarn that I'd used for those plushies, and I was kind of answering her questions a little bit. You know, I was like, oh, you know, it's like this chunky fuzzy blanket yarn from Michaels and stuff like that, and she kind of responded a little, I don't want to say disappointed, but just like kind of like lukewarm on that. She's like, oh, I don't think that's gonna work for what I want it for. And so me being a knitter and very knowledgeable about my yarns and my fibers, I said, well, you know, what kind of thing are you looking for? And she told me that she's looking for a super soft yarn or super soft kind of material for a hat for her mother, who is currently going through the process of losing her hair. So she's just looking for something that is soft enough to be worn next to skin on a very sensitive part of the skin, which is the scalp, and something to be able to keep her mom warm. And so I ended up working with her a little bit, and I said, you know, I'd be happy to knit something up because this is something that, you know, I think I'm pretty good at. Like, this is a talent that I have, and I'd be willing to knit something up for your mom. And so I brought in a couple of my yarn options for her to kind of feel. She wanted something that was a bit of a light gray, but I brought in the capretta that I just bought because it has that cashmere content, and that cashmere is very, very soft. And so I kind of let her feel that a little bit, and she really liked it. And so I ended up, yeah, she was asking me, you know, like, how much do you charge for your hats? And like, I haven't sold hats in years, and so I'm like, I'm happy to do it for free. I'll send you the link to the yarn. Just purchase that yarn, and then I'm happy to do it, no problem. And so she ended up getting a light gray colorway of that capretta. So I asked her to get 2 balls of yarn. I figured that would be enough for a hat, since this is a fingering weight yarn. So these are the light gray ones that I'll be using for that hat, if it'll focus. Hello. There we go. So this is the light gray color that I'll be using for that. I forget what the colorway is called. It's called Moonstone Heather. So this one is called Moonstone Heather. This is what I'll be working with. I found a hat pattern that looks like it'll do the trick. I forget who it's by. I'll put the Ravelry info here, but I remember the pattern is called Auckland Bound. It is a free hat pattern that calls for DK weight yarn. It just looks very simple, nice and stretchy. And so it calls for a DK or a worsted weight, and so I'll be holding this double. And based on her head measurement, I should have exactly enough yarn to make this hat with. So that will be great. And so that's kind of one thing that I'll be working on. I do want to finish this. I want to prioritize this now that I'm back from all of my trips and everything. I do want to prioritize this because it is for someone else. So I'm probably going to be casting this on pretty soon here, and then just kind of working on it It's a hat pattern. It's going to be the equivalent of working with like one 50-gram ball. So I don't imagine it'll take very long. So I'm going to cast that on and try and finish it pretty quickly. So that's another acquisition that I have, and as well as a future plan, I guess. Imminent future plan. Yes, that's that. My last acquisition is the one that I am most excited to share with you. So my boyfriend recently came back from a trip to Wyoming. I know we had this period of like we were both like traveling and like missing each other, and so for me going camping was also partially like if I don't go camping with you, I'm straight up not going to see you for like 3 weeks, I don't think. So yeah, we were just kind of missing each other with our travel plans. But he just came back from a trip to Wyoming, and he was embarking on a cultural pilgrimage to Heart Mountain, Wyoming, which, if you don't know, was an internment camp during the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II. If you don't know about Japanese American incarceration, this is me telling you to look it up. I think, you know, I think do your own research. Just look at the resources that are out there because there's so many resources out there that talk about this now. But yes, during World War II, Japanese Americans were mass incarcerated in the United States, and Heart Mountain, Wyoming was one of the larger detention centers for Japanese Americans. While it was erected or like populated, it was the third largest city in Wyoming, which is crazy to think about, but that's how many people were interned there. But he took part in a cultural pilgrimage to Heart Mountain, and kind of, it was this whole event with the opening of another wing. He plays with San Jose Taiko, which is a taiko group locally in the Bay Area. That they've been around for 50 years, very prestigious. So as a group, they were going to this cultural pilgrimage. But this is all backdrop for the acquisition because there was a yarn store across the street from where they were at one point, and so he went into the yarn store looking for something for me because he knew that I would really appreciate something from there. He got to talking with the nice woman who owns it, and he brought me, I'm trying to gather all my things. He brought me back this beautiful sock set from this yarn store. The yarn store itself is called Wyoming Yarn and Fiber. He got me some stickers from there also. So I have a regular like vinyl sticker and a wood sticker, which is super special, and I'm really going to have to decide where I want to put this wood sticker because it's super cool. But this tag says, and forgive me in advance because this is now telephoned from what he told me about the yarn and everything. But the tag says Sweet Mountain Crafts, but he told me that this yarn was dyed in store, like by the owner. And so like literally when he's looking at the things and stuff, this was on a display table, and the yarn, the owner was like, oh, this one's from last week. And so he was so like amazed by that. So he figured that this would be a special one for me because it's literally dyed right there by that lady. We both love supporting small businesses and stuff, and so he picked up this sock set for me. And this is called the Poppies and Ferns set, and it's on what they call their scree sock base, which is 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon. The main skein is 389 yards for 100 grams, and then the two mini skeins are each 39 yards, and they're 10 gram skeins. And so this was hand dyed in Cody, Wyoming, it says, which is where the yarn store was. And so yes, it's really, really beautiful. There's a lot of different colors going on in the skein. We've got a lot of these kind of like sunset colors. So it's a very dark blue base, but then it's a veritable rainbow of variegation in here. Like there's greens, there's orange, there's white, there's yellow, and everything in between. It's really, really beautiful. And then these two mini skeins just complement very well. So I'm going to make a very special pair of socks with this. Don't know which pair yet, but definitely something that I'll be able to incorporate these mini skeins in with. So I might be looking at some like Summer Lee or something like that, someone who does very fun color combinations. So yeah, so this was my last acquisition for this episode. And I've been talking for so long, and this episode is going to be so long because my camera battery is literally running out, even though I've just been talking this whole time. So let's go ahead and wrap this up finally. This was a super long episode, but I had so much to catch you guys up on. I've been up to so much over the past few weeks, gotten a lot of knitting done, gotten a lot of knitting finished, and I have a lot of things coming up on the horizon that I'm excited about as well. So if you're still here watching, thank you so much for supporting me and my channel. It really means so much that you stuck around all the way to the end. So thank you for spending your time with me today. If you like what I do here, you can always follow me on Instagram at yarnyheart for more updates. And I would really appreciate it if you took a moment and considered subscribing to my channel, like this video if you like what you're seeing, and leave a comment down below telling me what kinds of things you're working on, whether or not you think this brown and yellow is going to be a good color combination, if you have any sock pattern recommendations for my very special skein of sock yarn. Let me know what you're up to. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye!